Rotorua is often described as the cultural capital of New Zealand. But after spending 4 days here, we realized that some of the must-do experiences everyone raves about might not be exactly what you're expecting.
Most people treat this town as a quick day trip from Auckland. We decided to stay, hoping to find a deeper connection to the place, even if it meant facing a few disappointments along the way.
From the big cultural spectacles to the quiet moments in between, we had to ask, is Rotorua actually worth a stay if you aren't here for the thrills? What we found surprised us, and it all came down to one choice: to slow down. We'll be sharing everything we spent at the end. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. Rotorua is a 3-hour drive from Auckland. Most people book a tour that buses them in at 10 a.m. and out by 4 p.m. That's 6 hours of commuting for a handful of highlights. We didn't want to see New Zealand through a bus window. We wanted to be in it.
Now, fair warning, you will smell the town before you arrive. It's famous for its geysers, but the sulfur smell here is strong.
Incredibly strong.
We came to Rotorua because it's more than a stop on a list. It is the cradle of Māori tourism. Back in the 1800s, this was the first place where Māori and Europeans truly interacted through travel, with Te Aurora people guiding visitors to the geothermal wonders. We felt that a town with this much history deserved more than just a few hours of our time.
Getting here was surprisingly easy. We took an inner-city bus from Auckland. It was comfortable, affordable, and dropped us right in the center of town. We chose to stay at the Millennium Hotel because it was an easy walking distance from the bus drop-off, right in the heart of the geothermal zone. And also it was the pickup spot for the tours we did.
And if you stay till the very end, we have one final tip you're not going to want to miss.
One of the primary reasons we came to Rotorua was Te Puia. It's a cultural and geothermal center that sits on an active volcano valley. People come to understand both the natural forces that shape this region and the Māori culture that lived alongside them for generations.
This was one of the only places that we visited that didn't have a pickup, but we were able to use an Uber and it was fine. Now, this isn't a place that you can just show up and buy a ticket and wander around. You have to purchase a ticket that includes a guided experience. And there's a lot to choose from on their website, but we ended up going with the T-Ray guided experience.
Welcome to Te Puia, everyone. My name is Tamati, and I'll be sending you guys out with one of these guides just on my left-hand side.
There's also an evening cultural experience, but we chose to go somewhere else. We read that this one was a little bit more commercialized than what we were looking for. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
We started by going into a nocturnal house to see kiwi. Now, since it's a nocturnal house, they don't want you to have a flash camera in there. In fact, they don't even want you taking any photography because they don't want anything to disturb the animals. It was a rushed experience in some ways because some of the people at the beginning of our tour were looking really hard to find all the nocturnal animals. And by the time it got to us, it's like, we need to move through now. So less impressive than I thought it was going to be. And the kiwis, I think we spotted them, but so briefly.
Yeah, it was hard to see. In addition to not wanting you to take any photos, they also don't want you to speak in there either, which, while it's disappointing as people who like to share what we see, we at least recognize that they are taking conservation really seriously. And taking care of the animals is always one of the most important things whenever we travel anywhere.
And kiwis are very rare, so it's a good thing they're taking care of them.
One of the highlights and reasons many people come to Te Puia is in order to see the geysers. But first we saw mud pools, and they do a lot of spa treatments here. They're famous for their mud. We didn't do that though.
But we did learn that's where the smell comes from.
The smell is intense though.
Oh, is it really? I don't know, it's an expensive smell.
It is. It is really intense.
Maybe it can smell, but I couldn't tell you what it smells like. Is the sulfur smelling?
A little bit of mud. Like really old mud.
Out of everything in the complex, I would say that my favorite part was seeing the geysers.
Right there.
Coming out of my ear.
It's not someone with the heat on.
Oh, look, right on top of your head. There you go.
So rude.
And it was a cold day, but those geysers spewed a lot of heat.
There are a lot of hot spots around this whole park. So you would just be freezing in your jacket and then come up against a spot and going, whoa, they turned the heaters on.
If you're chilly, this spot in the trail is very warm.
We're right above some of the rocks. You can feel the heat coming up through the grates on the bridge.
There were rocks that you couldn't even sit on because they were so scalding hot.
So it is pretty cool how hot these rocks are.
Was that a joke? Is it pretty cool how hot these rocks are?
It's just legit. But they are really hot. They will burn your butt. Honestly. Like you could just feel how hot. And it's kind of a coolish day. So in some ways the heat feels good. But I don't think you can sit for very long. Maybe a minute. Here, let's see.
Oh, yeah. Don't wreck your jacket. Lift your jacket up.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who likes to have heated seats when you're driving, that's what this is, but on...
100x.
Yes.
That sign is not there just for show. It actually means it. But standing next to it if you're chilly is great.
Oh, it is.
It's like being in front of a fire. And we were supposed to sit and listen to a talk right there. And so first spot you sit on, right down here. No, you can't sit there. I had to move all the way up onto like a retaining wall.
I almost thought that my leggings were going to melt.
That would not be good in public.
No, it wouldn't have. After that, we hopped on a little train that took us back to the front entrance so that we could see the Māori Arts and Crafts Institute, which is actually a school.
In fact, the entry fees you pay help fund this school, where the students are taught the craft of the Māori culture. There's wood carving school, a weaving school, a stone and bone carving school, and only a few students are accepted each year.
And this wasn't exactly what I was expecting it to be. I thought that we would be able to watch people working on their craft, maybe ask questions, or the host that was guiding us ask questions, but it really wasn't that way at all. In fact, there was often a glass separating us from the students.
Or we were in an overhead situation where you couldn't really get anywhere near them.
And only a few were actually working their craft.
And it was interesting to see the tools and hear about this process, but it certainly wasn't as instructive as I thought it might be.
Even some of the things that we were supposed to be learning, we couldn't hear because people were having their own chats and side conversations.
Which goes back to, we prefer smaller crowds and smaller groups, personalized if we can get it, because the larger your group gets, the harder they are to corral, and the more they tend to wander.
Yeah, and of course we didn't have that choice in this place, or we would have done something different. We want to emphasize this is an actual school, so people are not on all day. They are just living their lives and doing their work. But proceeds of anything that you buy does also go to help the school, and I think the students also get a portion of the proceeds as well.
Yeah, and when you walk through that shop area, it looks like an art gallery. It is just very impressive, and the intricate work that they do, amazing.
And I think some of that work is actually generations old as well. Mm-hmm. The whole complex is about 150 acres. And while we didn't do any extended walking around the property, you totally could. There were some routes that you could see from a map so that you could make a day of it if you wanted.
Yeah. Or get lost. Some of those routes look very confusing.
So while some of these interactions weren't exactly what I thought we would get while we were here, I was actually glad to learn about the Māori culture a little bit more, be able to help fund this history that is keeping these crafts alive. And so overall, I still think it was a worthwhile thing that we did. The Mitai Village experience is going to give you probably the most authentic, less commercialized experience of any of the other places that offer it.
A nice part was that a driver will pick you up and drop you off as part of the experience.
And that's what we did. So let's talk about what worked well. And that was the hongi experience, which is underground cooking. We'll talk about more in a bit. And it's probably the most authentic. It's less commercialized than anywhere else.
When we walked in, we got assigned a table, and we had a leader that talked about Māori culture, what the meal's going to be like, and what we're going to be doing that evening.
If you could turn to the person at the back of you, if there's no one at the back, you can just wave at me and say, Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Fantastic.
She gave us all the down low on how this is really a family experience. The whole group here is family. She kept calling people cousin and nephew and just calling out people and asking questions of her fellow family members if she didn't have the answers during our Q&A session, which we had later.
Originally, I was starting to think, oh, this really was her brother or her auntie. And then I realized, okay, no, the Māori culture really does just, it's very inclusive. And I think that that actually was one of the special experiences, understanding how interconnected everyone is. And I kind of wish that we as humans could embrace that kind of mentality everywhere.
Now, another nice part about this was she used a lot of the Maori language.
Now, how I started this evening off with was what we call a mihi. Can you all say mihi?
Mihi.
Okay, what's a mihi? A mihi is welcoming.
She talked about what words they use for certain things. She gave us a lot of background on that. Did we retain much of it? I don't know. But we did our best to try to drink as much in as possible. And she even had us saying things to our co-diners at our table.
After all the intro stuff was taken care of, we were lined up along the Waiawhira stream, and that's where we saw warriors paddling a war canoe.
When we said Rotorua was the cradle of tourism, the ancestors of these performers were doing the exact same thing of guiding visitors 150 years ago. So we appreciated all the history that came before us.
And then as we were walking back to our dinner tent, we could see and learn about the underground cooking that's representative of a traditional hangi experience. There's meat, komara, which is a type of sweet potato, and a bunch of other kinds of food.
The baskets of food are dropped into this hangi earth oven and then covered to trap heat while it cooks 3 to 4 hours in the steam and heat from the hangi stones.
Now you could go up to the buffet as many times as you wanted, and there was a huge variety. We weren't looking to stuff ourselves, but we were curious to see what was offered, and honestly, it was quite a lot.
At the end of the meal and after the Q&A, there was a leader chosen, a chief amongst our tourist visitors, and he was going to be used later in the next session, which was the actual Maori experience.
I felt like this was a bit more story-driven, but it also was maybe a bit more performative. I didn't feel like it was quite as spiritual, and it had a completely different tone than what we had in Auckland.
Yeah, and it was a bigger group, so a lot of them were coming up and doing their own individual things. And then at the end of it, they also were going through all the traditional fighting methods and the gear that they were using and the way the spears are used and other things. So a lot more detail about everything that the Maori people were using.
What caught me off guard a bit was that in Auckland, there was no filming of it. Whereas here, they encouraged you to clap, they encouraged you to film. It was a totally different vibe.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that. So after this experience, we were ushered out and then we were led through the ancient fortified village to see that. It was dark, so there's only so much you could see in that, but you could tell that there was a lot of culture here also. And then after that, there was the glowworm experience, which I think was a little tough.
Yeah, the whole thing was a bushwalk. And there was even the spiritual stream that we got to see. But the glowworms, I feel like, were a little bit of a wah-wah experience for us. And you kind of were moving fairly quickly through all of this.
No, it was a wrap up and everyone stay on the trail, don't veer off, and find the exit.
Yeah, so that was a little bit not what we were looking for. But I think overall, the experience was different than we expected, but also one that we're glad we had.
And I feel like it was educational. I feel like I learned a lot at this one. And so I appreciate that we got to see it.
And one really nice thing about this is we then didn't have to go back to Auckland on a 3-hour bus ride.
True. Back to our hotel by a driver.
One of the perks of staying in Rotorua was that we could see what the town actually felt like, not just go from attraction to attraction. We just walked the streets and looked around. There's plenty to see and do. We just chose to observe.
Right, and there's areas where there's a whole bunch of restaurants down one street. There is definitely a lot of Asian culture there as well, just like we've found in Auckland and parts of Australia. So if you want Asian food, an excellent place for it. And I felt like you had a lot of options for inexpensive food, so I didn't think it was an expensive place to eat.
Yeah, we had authentic Thai food, red curry. We had Korean fried chicken, which was also really good.
Some Vietnamese food.
And Vietnamese, yeah. And it all felt very local. Now, our hotel had a spa, and Rotorua is famous for all of its spa experiences.
Yeah, if it's got all that heat, why not?
It's not what we came for, but if it is your thing, we think you'll probably really enjoy that.
And there's plenty of options.
And for as much as we wanted to learn about the Maori culture, we also are book and movie lovers.
Where are we going?
So we have a Hobbiton tour today, which includes seeing the movie set and I think just a lot of natural sites that were being used for filming for Lord of the Rings.
And it's a big bus, and it's supposed to be a full coach, so a lot of us going on this.
Yes, I think most of all I was looking at getting out into nature and seeing some like really epic sights.
Yeah, sounds good to me, and I hope the day stays as pretty as it is right now, because it's very nice.
Yeah, it started at 8 and it's supposed to end around 3:30, so it's a long full day.
All right, more people coming in. See you later.
I didn't realize that Hobbiton was located on a working sheep and beef farm in the middle of New Zealand's countryside. It's been transformed, and the story about that was pretty interesting.
Peter Jackson's team was on a scouting trip, and they fell in love with the Alexander farm. And so they decided they wanted to come and talk to the owners. They knocked on the door, but the family was in the middle of watching a rugby tournament and basically said, come back later.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Rugby's really important.
I mean, I feel like it was probably one of the most New Zealander things to do.
Yeah, and they didn't know who these people were. Having watched The Lord of the Rings so many times, walking onto this farm and seeing these rolling hills and seeing this beautiful landscape really was breathtaking.
And the detail that they had put into making Hobbiton feel as alive as it was, I mean, honestly, mad props to the art design team.
And of course, you stop at this store at the beginning, and there's a full-size Gandalf there. So if you want to get a picture with Gandalf, that's your opportunity. You don't have to buy anything to do that. And there's just a lot of little references that the Tolkien fans will really get, and I probably missed a ton of them.
Our guide asked us to try to figure out the one thing that was artificial here. I mean, of course, not including the little hobbit houses and those kinds of things, but the actual landscape.
As she was walking us through, she said, keep your eye out for the fake tree. And I'm like, fake tree? They all look so real. Finally pointed it out to us, which was up on a hill.
Yeah, Bag End.
But it was so big.
All of the leaves are hand tied to this tree.
And colored. You want a certain color to everything. And that's what's really cool about walking through this place. Like they have laundry hanging on lines. They have things that aren't going to take the weather well. But what they do is they replace them and they redo them to make sure they look worn, but not too worn from the outside weather. So everything here is constantly being kept up, but not so that it's pristine, so that it looks like it did in the movie where hobbits lived there.
It just really felt like an authentic experience of living in this age and walking through a true Hobbiton. Now, of course, because this was a movie set, a lot of the holes were dummy holes and the doors didn't open or anything like that. But we did get to go to Bagshot Row, and the attention to detail was impeccable because we were allowed inside and could see all of that same incredible art.
Right. They had two houses next to each other, so they split up the tours and each got to walk through. And so much is in this house. And you're allowed to touch things and sit on things.
Yeah, use them. They were fine with
Yeah.
you doing anything you wanted with them. No, wait, I will admit that some things were glued down so you couldn't manipulate
Take it.
them. Let's hope that people weren't going to do that, but I'm sure there probably are.
No, but and there's a lot to it. Even the kitchen, and you wander through these spaces.
Oh, now wait a minute. There was an actual head of cabbage or lettuce. So like fresh out of the garden.
They'd fit some real things in there to kind of throw you off. It's like, wait a minute, that's a real vegetable. And what I liked about this tour was we got to stop at the Green Dragon Inn and have a complimentary drink. They come in pints.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
What can I grab you?
Cheers. Cheers from Hobbiton. And it was actually pretty delicious. And the place also had a little pastry shop, which I you took a look at, try to figure out if there's something there worthy.
Well, the problem is that even though some of the things there looked really delicious, afterwards we were going to the party marquee and there was going to be a ton of food there. So we didn't want to eat. There's no reason.
We stuck to the one drink and that's enough.
The party marquee tent was incredible. There was a ton of really delicious food. It was a great experience overall. So I'm really glad that we included that piece in the tour that we took.
Yeah, we had some really nice discussions with our table mates, so that was fascinating too. As far as mobility goes, there's about 2 kilometers of walking over 2 hours of uneven gravel and hilly paths. There are specialized accessibility options, such as golf carts, for those with limited mobility.
But the carts can't actually get into all of the nooks and crannies that we were able to explore.
Make sure you arrange it at least 72 hours in advance because they have limited supply of these things if you need a cart. We'll give it a 2 out of 5 for mobility.
So before we give you our final wrap up, let's talk about what it costs for 4 days in Rotorua. Our bus trip from Auckland cost us $58 or $29 per person. Accommodations at the Millennium Hotel were $584. Getting around the city cost $38. Dining and groceries were a total of $290 or $36 per person per day. Tours cost us a total of $656. The total cost was $1,626. Minus the cost of transportation to travel from Auckland, we spent $1,568, which breaks down to $392 per day and $196 per person per day. So what were our final thoughts about Rotorua?
Well, don't come for the smell. But the place is kind of nice, and I really like the walkability of it, and certainly access to these wonderful natural mud baths and geysers, and then going to Hobbiton. Definitely worth it. I don't see how people come from Auckland and just do a day trip here. There is a lot to see.
Yeah, I mean, if you do a day trip, you're probably going to just do one. And honestly, I can't think of which one thing I think was worth doing, because I really am glad for a variety of reasons that we did each of those things. And for those of you who stayed along to the end, one of the things we have to talk about is Rotorua Airport.
Best airport ever? Or smallest airport ever?
I can't wrap my head around the fact that we don't have to go through any kind of security. But I'll also say that that was the best scone since Brodie Ferry. No contest. So good.
Scones over here. Yes, very nicely done. So we're in the cafeteria and the gates are right here. I mean, it's not like you go through any security or anything else. It's just, and there's the planes out there. So really tiny, really friendly. Walked up. You guys okay? Need anything? We're just dropping our bags off. Great, scan here. And
I know, it's really quite remarkable.
A light lift. We're heading to Wellington and then on to our final destination of Nelson.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this video, we think you'll like our video from Auckland. Check it out right here.
Thank you so much for joining us in Rotorua. If you haven't already subscribed, we'd love for you to do that. Our next stop in New Zealand is going to be Nelson, and you're not going to want to miss it.
Remember to
Wander more,
worry less,
and bring a passport.
Until next time.
Until next time.